This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I am your host, Miles Taylor. What we're going to talk about today is a word: cruelty. We're going to talk about how Donald Trump only cares about himself and is willing to inflict cruelty on anyone, whether it's U.S. service members or migrants who want a better life, or his fellow Americans, or his own staff members. It doesn't matter. If you serve the country, you serve him, in his view. That's what we're going to talk about today on Defiance Daily, with a number of news stories that buttress that point, that buttress what I saw firsthand in the first Trump administration, that has now gone from scary quirk to dangerous to democracy. Before we jump in, though, I do want to say this. If this is the first time you are meeting us, go check out defiance.org. That's it. Go to our website. That's the domain. Read about why we exist and what we are trying to do. We built this organization to counter the corruption, the endemic corruption we are seeing from Donald Trump, to do it day in and day out. And every single week, we announce a real action we are taking to fight that corruption. We'll talk a little bit later about the action that we announced yesterday. We're going to do this until the guy is gone. He's going to keep trying to get revenge against me, against my former colleagues who've spoken out against him, against any of his foes, and we're not going to be intimidated by that. We built this organization to crowdsource courage in this country, and guess what, folks? It is working. So go check out defiance.org, sign up for free for our newsletter, or become a member to participate in those actions to counter Donald Trump's abuses of power, to get special content, and to be a part of the club for the courageous. Also, by the way, wherever you're watching this, please hit that like button. Please hit that heart button. Please hit that subscribe button. That's a very small way you can help spread the defiance and spread the impact of this nonprofit organization. I want to bring in my defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz, who very nearly didn't make it today, but he made it into his office that was locked, and now it's unlocked. And we've got that stunning logo behind you. The Defiance, handwritten Defiance logo.
I thought you were going to say the footage. I thought you were going to say the footage of me trying to kick down a WeWork door.
We don't even have your right microphone. I think we've got your computer microphone here. It's great, man. I love the ad hoc setup. I'm digging it. People are there should probably be Xander there should probably be a Where's Miles, Where's Xander sort of trivia game, because I don't even know where you are. I don't even think you really know where I am. We'll probably be back at our homes in the next week or two. But thanks for bearing with our temporary setups.
I actually did have a GeoGuessr, Where's Miles? If you remember, back in like December, I created it.
Oh, I think that's right. And I'm pretty sure I went back to you and I was like, that's not super good for my family's security.
There's actually people looking for me. Don't have them guess right. Don't know. Yeah, fair enough.
Xander was like, it's a honey trap to catch your stalkers. It's a honey trap to catch them. Well, listen, folks. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're talking about a lot of stories today. Miles just let you know to go to defiance.org to join us. If for whatever reason that's too confusing, throughout this program, you're going to be thinking, that orange man is bad. And so if you go to orangemanbad.org, that also helps you join the Defiance, join the club. You're going to be thinking that many times throughout this program. I know, because I was able to read ahead a little bit today. Like many days.
I have to tell you, it's such a silly thing, but when Xander was like, hey, I bought the domain name Orange Man Bad, I was like, that's hilarious. He's like, no, I really think we should use it. I was like, yeah, people will think that's a good joke. And then we made a bumper magnet available in our swag store that said Orange Man Bad. And all the proceeds from the swag go to our actions to counter Trump. And I went in and I looked the other day, and it's like the highest selling thing in the past month in the swag store is the Orange Man Bad car magnet. And I was like, oh my God, he was right. I hate to tell him when he's right. He was totally right. Orange Man Bad. It resonates. Easy messaging, folks. Easy messaging. I'll tell you, Xander, what is not easy messaging is when you've got sailors aboard a ship on a tour of duty that's gone on too long, that some of them are trying to throw themselves off the ship because the situation's getting so desperate, and the administration's lying about that. Okay? Let me back up in case you don't know what I'm talking about. Donald Trump, of course, loves to wear the badge of commander-in-chief, right? This guy loves to pretend he's a general. He literally posts AI-generated images depicting himself alongside General Patton and General MacArthur. This is crazy. This is the draft dodger, right? The draft dodger. Remember, both of these men that he's standing next to in this AI image received awards for leading American military campaigns. Donald Trump received 5 draft deferments, including one for bone spurs, right? He's got bone spur bravery. So perhaps our friend Donald Trump should cool it with the stolen valor posts, especially, friends, after what we learned this week about the thousands of U.S. service members aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. Because I don't know any way to put it, Xander, other than this story is pretty fucking heartbreaking. The Lincoln has been deployed since November and was supposed to come home in May, right? May, June, July, August, 4 months ago. Instead, Trump sent it to the Middle East as part of his war with Iran. And now, nearly 9 months into this deployment, we are only learning how bad things have gotten because their families are starting to sound the alarm. There was this town hall with senior Navy leaders, I think that was last week, and one wife reportedly broke down as she was telling officials about a message that she had gotten from her husband earlier that day where he said, quote, he hoped he would not wake up tomorrow.
Oof.
Let that sink in for a second, man. U.S. service members who are being pushed to the brink by this administration's unnecessary war, who want to kill themselves because it's getting so dark. And her story ended up being one of many. The Military Times and the other military newspaper, Stars and Stripes, have reported multiple incidents of sailors trying to go overboard. Not slip and falls. Sailors trying to go overboard. In one, a sailor reportedly had to physically grab a shipmate to stop them from jumping off the ship. In another, a sailor actually attempted to jump overboard. His wife says he had been repeatedly overextended, and now after his attempt has been placed on a medical hold. When she spoke to him, he expressed he was terrified that after 13 years in the Navy, this could cost him his career. Now, Xander, you and I can sit here and try to understand what this kind of deployment does to a person, but neither of us have lived it. So I wanted to play this video from a 10-year Navy veteran, Dalton Driehaus, who saw these reports yesterday and explained in pretty lucid terms what month after month after month under these conditions does to someone who is living through them. Take a listen.
March 11th, 2020. I'm a second class in the United States Navy, leaving for deployment on the USS Greenville. We pulled out of Pearl Harbor 2 days before the lockdown started with a 45-day food load. Plans to stop in Guam or Japan to do a port call, take on a full food load, and go and get on mission doing super cool, super secret squirrel submarine stuff. The pandemic happens. We're no longer allowed to pull in. We get sent directly out on mission. We run out of food twice. It is a 90-something day banger from sunlight to sunlight. Okay, I lost something like 15 or 20 pounds over the course of that deployment. It was one of the hardest, most anxiety-inducing, mentally demanding periods of my entire 10-year Navy career. Okay, when I say I am deeply concerned for my shipmates aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, I mean it. November 2025, the Lincoln leaves its home port of San Diego, California. December, they get their first port call in Guam. Then they get rerouted to the Middle East to support Fifth Fleet while tensions escalate with Iran. February, the conflict starts, and finally in July, we get another port call. They went from December to July underway with a whole lot of combat operations mixed in there for flavor. We have seen, since this conflict started, the Lincoln run out of food, have food issues, and the administration and HEG staff have loved to come out and say, no, see, look, they've got plenty of fresh food. Here's the thing. A warship with 5,000 souls aboard goes through food really quick. Who do we think is in charge of keeping that ship resupplied? It's Fifth Fleet. This is what the Fifth Fleet headquarters looks like right fucking now. It's gone. It doesn't fucking exist anymore. So when sailors are sending pictures back to their families saying, this is what we're eating, we're not getting letters, we're not getting packages, because the logistics network that supports that ship and that strike group got fucked in the opening days of this war, because Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth had no idea how to effectively plan this operation. Or was this administration firing all the Iranian counter-terror operatives, or ignoring every warning from its own IC, or refusing to rope in any of our historic allies? It should be blindingly obvious at this point to anybody with any degree of ball knowledge, this administration ran headfirst into this conflict at the behest of Israel without doing the bare minimum of planning to make sure this operation was going to go our way. And now enlisted men like the sailors on the Lincoln are the ones going to be caught holding the bag for this administration's incompetence. It's fucking disgusting.
Preach.
I mean,
Preach.
First of
Well
all,
said.
Dalton, good on you, my friend. Good on you for saying what needed to be said. Here was the big part we left out, Xander. Big part we left out is we're not just talking about a deployment that's going too long. As Dalton just explained, the fact that this thing has been extended and out there where they don't have that resupply, you have got sailors and airmen who are going for days on limited food, have no soap, no hygiene. Like, it's getting Lord of the Flies out there on the USS Abraham Lincoln. So Lord of the Flies that people are trying to kill themselves, right? It's not just about being away from home for a long time. They're living in unspeakable conditions. I'll tell you, I've been on the USS Lincoln. I've been out there. I flew out during one of its deployments about a decade ago. It was a great visit. Wonderful to meet those airmen and those sailors. I just pulled that up while we were listening. Here's a happy picture of Miles out there on the, I don't know if that shows up on the Lincoln. Let me tell you, when you go below deck on a ship like that, you are in extremely confined quarters. Even a well-supplied ship with a compelling mission is still a daunting, dark, depressing place. Even if you're on a short tour, you know by the end of that, you're going to be mentally exhausted. You feel like when you're touring it, you feel like you're in a place, Xander, that's worse than prison because it's closer quarters than a prison. You and I have been through penitentiaries where they can actually sometimes be quite spacious. These are very cramped, very, very cramped spaces, lightless places. Then you throw in no food. Then you throw in the frustration of not seeing family. This gets dire. And here's the killer of all of it. The killer of all of it is that today, Pete Hegseth was given the chance to address the conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln.
And he came clean. He came clean? No, he didn't.
Oh, yeah, always. As he always does. Yeah, he totally came clean and owned it.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible. I mean, Americans don't understand what it's like to do that. So as someone who's not been on a ship like that, but been on long deployments, I feel it. I want them home as soon as everybody else do. I want folks rotated as quickly as possible. I want the best for them. My commanders know that. Our service secretaries know that. The president expects that. And so to that crew and to all those crews, we're going to do everything we can for you. And we are so grateful for their dedication of that.
So 2 things I would note there, Xander. 1, does not take ownership. Okay. No. He's not just a guy who served in uniform once. He's not just a guy that does viral videos. He's the United States Secretary of Defense. Does not take responsibility, right? Every member of the armed forces who watches that first sees their boss's boss's boss not take responsibility. Second thing he does not do is admit what's going on and talk about remedying it, right? A leader takes responsibility. And a leader also takes ownership over the solutions. The right thing for Pete Hegseth to say would be, you know what? At the end of the day, the buck stops with me. What is happening is unacceptable. What is happening is beneath the dignity of the United States military. What is happening is unacceptable for families back home to hear about. I'm doing everything I can right now to fix this. This is a problem. We're going to fix it. That's it. That's all you had to say. No one had to script that for me, Xander. Wasn't written down anywhere. Did it on the fly. Would have done a whole hell of a lot more good if Pete Hegseth had said that. I don't know. You got a different speech you should have made?
I like the idea of you writing their speeches for them and performing them in our show, just having a segment for that to ship them every day to be like, guys, this is how an adult handles this. This is not the buck stops at me administration for sure. Do you ever listen to Hardcore History, Miles?
No.
Dan Carlin? It's so good. It's so good. But he covers all these, conflicts at different times in history in literally 8-hour podcasts that go over it. And it's something you hear over and over again, whether he's covering the Revolutionary War or he's covering, our Civil War or World War II, is the burden these generals feel about deploying young men to their death. He gets into their journals and you read how stressful and how terrible that position is to send young men into harm's way. And you see Trump, putting himself next to Patton and MacArthur, as you mentioned. And I'm sure that thought never even passes his mind. It never crosses his mind. The suffering, not only of the Iranian people who he's lobbing missiles at, but also the soldiers and the conditions that he would never, and intentionally avoided, he would never put himself in. The other thing that is absolutely infuriating about the story, as a theme now, is one, we're in this needless conflict, but two, somehow we don't have the resources for it. Somehow we can't feed our soldiers. No. We don't have the missiles we need. Do you remember that ridiculous commercial that Hegseth did with the cartoons? Where he's like, we need a $1.5 trillion down payment on your safety. It's fucking insane. We spend so much money on this military. How? Why can the soldiers not eat? Why do we not have the missiles we need? I think the American people already know the military-industrial complex is absurdly bloated. But then to see us come short in very tactical ways, like feeding your soldiers and having the missiles you need, is so infuriating for someone like me who's been advocating for social programs and been told for fucking years that we don't have the money for it because we need this giant military.
And it's on them, man. It's on them. These folks who won't take responsibility. You said it. And I think we got to say it again and again. They have so mismanaged this war that we are, I like alliteration. We're running out of firepower. We're running out of fuel, and we're running out of food because this guy so mismanaged this conflict, and because they are lying about the extent of the damage to U.S. bases. You heard that referenced in Dalton's video. He showed you that picture. They're lying about what happened to the infrastructure of the Fifth Fleet, right? This administration's reaction the whole time has been very little damage has been done to U.S. assets. The reality is U.S. assets in the region have been decimated. The Iranians have done far more than we expected them to do. And now they've got us over a literal barrel. They've got us over an oil barrel to end this war. And they know it. They know it because they're not accepting any of the Trump administration's offers. Xander, the latest reports are that the deal the Iranians have put on the table is that the United States permanently allow them to collect a toll in the Strait of Hormuz, that the United States remove all forces from the region, and that the United States pay Iran billions and billions and billions in reparations for past conflicts. That's
Why not?
What they feel emboldened to ask us.
Why not ask for it?
That's right. They gave them the moon and the sun and the stars, a $300 billion deal to the Iranians to end this conflict. And the Iranians said, no, we see how badly we've damaged the United States. We can demand more. And by God, I assume the Trump administration's considering it.
Yeah. I think all the evidence points to they will eventually cave because they want out of this, because they don't do anything to meet a certain end. It is all, man, the doctor said so great the other day, just trying to manage their coalition. They're trying to manage their coalition constantly with the actions they take. And so looking strong and badass towards Iran, they decided at one point was good for them getting out of there. Now they're deciding is good for them. There's no fucking plan with these guys at all. And we're all paying the price for it. The other thing that's incredible, Miles, when you think about us being out of all the Fs, as you just laid out, Are we in year 4 of fighting the Nazis in Imperial Japan who have taken over 2/3 of the world? No. We're in like month 4 of a country that had no interest in striking us, and somehow we're all out. How did this happen?
I
How
mean,
does
it
that?
happened.
Are we in a
It happened
great
because
conflict I'm not aware of?
we put a completely incompetent fool back in the White House, and I hate to say it, the numbers at least show that millions of Americans are relearning the lesson that they should have learned. And I'm not here to rub their noses in it, because their noses are already in it. I don't got to push them down into it. They smell the shit. And they're telling the pollsters that they smell the shit. That's why Donald Trump's approval rating is now in the low 30s. He is in absolutely devastating territory. His poll numbers are now worse than they were after the January 6th insurrection. Think about that, folks. Think about that. And, you know, the chickens are coming home to roost. Now, at the expense of these sailors and airmen and Marines out there. Now, if there's one sliver of hope in this story that we're talking about, it's Xander, that a number of media outlets reported today that the USS George Washington, which is out there in the Indo-Pacific near Japan, is apparently coming to the aid of the USS Lincoln. It's coming to relieve the Lincoln. Now, there's not a publicly announced date for when the Lincoln sailors will finally return home, but U.S. officials told the Wall Street Journal the relief plan is underway. But of course, it raises an important question here, which is that how was this allowed to happen in the first place? And I know there's a zillion Trump administration controversies to investigate, but there are basic questions here that if I was still a congressional investigator, I would be asking. They are: who knew what and when? Did the Secretary of Defense know that there were problems? Was this escalated up the chain of command? If so, what did the Secretary of Defense do about it? If he didn't do anything, why didn't he do anything? And why didn't he tell the American people? Why has he not been forthright? Those questions should all be asked. And you know what? I can tell you one thing about the military. Even if the Trump White House wants to give the president the authority to use the shredder on official documents to hide presidential records inside the military are pretty well kept. So those questions should be asked, my friend.
Yeah, I wonder what this does to the military and former military member coalition. You know, that still was voted in large numbers for Trump this last election, partially because of maybe a feeling of betrayal on how we exited Afghanistan. I think we should not underestimate the impact and importance of investing in the organizing of military and former military members coming into the midterms.
I think so. We'll have to have our friend Paul Rieckhoff at Independent Veterans of America, one of the organizations that Defiance.org has funded, come talk to us about exactly that. Come talk to us about how that campaign is going to push the No More Forever Wars agenda in Washington and to mobilize service members to make their voices heard by this administration. Clearly, it makes a difference right now. Xander, that's just one of 3 stories of cruelty right now and reasons to stay motivated to combat this administration's abuses. This next one is about ICE and how ICE agents themselves may soon have another literal way to shock people into submission. I want to tell you about this if you haven't followed this story. My former stomping grounds, the Department of Homeland Security, is planning to spend up to $20 million on these things called, real cutesy acronym, called GLOVE, GLOVE, which stands for Generated Low Output Voltage Emitter. DHS calls these a de-escalation device. Now, before I tell you what they actually do, Xander, I think it's easier if you see them for yourself.
Grabs Deputy Brobeck with the glove. Grab him on the hand and take him down. Today I'm just going to grab him. Stay standing, take him over. You're done. Ready? Come on.
Yeah. So these gloves deliver an electric shock through direct contact with someone's skin, causing pain, and according to the manufacturer, potentially preventing them from making quote, coordinated muscle movement. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, a federal agency that you pay for, plans to hand them out to officers and agents working on immigration enforcement and criminal investigations by next spring. They're going to pass them out throughout the force. Here's where it gets even more disturbing, folks. More disturbing than ICE agents wearing electric gloves to grab and shock people that they're going after. The manufacturer's own user manual has some pretty specific instructions about what officers should not do with them. This is the user manual right there on the screen. Here are some of the scary parts. Max voltage of 380 volts, roughly 3 times the charge of a standard US power outlet. You know how they tell you not to straighten a hanger or stick things in the outlet? This may not seem like a lot, you guys, but this is mid to lower range of voltage. That's pretty dangerous because it can work through the body longer. Now, more than 2 of the gloves can come in contact with a single subject. Contact, according to the manual, should be no more than 15 seconds. Specifically, it notes that the glove, quote, shall not be deployed for verbal defiance, punishment, or torture, and should not be used on high-risk individuals. The unusual parts must come in contact with the subject's skin, won't work through clothing or hair. I got to say, Xander, I was one of those folks that left the first Trump administration. There were a number of us who used the phrase, the cruelty is the point.
Right.
I think some folks, when they heard us saying that, thought it was hyperbolic, thought it was the venting of disgruntled employees. I got to tell you, based on my first experience, all the way up to the president himself, the cruelty is literally the point. I cannot tell you how many times we witnessed Trump openly fantasizing about ways to torture people. I was the one who came out and first revealed he wanted to shoot women and innocent, unarmed people at the border to stop them from getting to the border. That's called murder. The president proposed that in front of real people who were shocked to hear the leader of the free world say, why don't we murder people at the border to stop them from coming across? But it didn't stop there. There were endless ways he wanted to torture, barbaric ways and ideas he had. Those were stopped. Most of them, some of them weren't stopped because he rammed them through. A lot of those you never heard about because people were so appalled, because we got the lawyers involved, because we said to the White House, this would be illegal. Clearly, that does not exist anymore. Clearly, this administration is willing to satiate the president's barbaric impulses and to torture people. This is like a dystopian novel. This is like 1984, giving these federal agents electric shock gloves. Just think back to what you saw in Minneapolis a few months ago, folks. Now, imagine every single one of those scenes that was filmed on a phone that you saw had ICE agents that had electric shock gloves. Remember how many innocent people they put their hands on? Remember the old ladies at protests that they grabbed and they pushed down? Remember the unarmed people that they pushed against the wall? Remember the people at traffic stops? Now imagine all of those people being shocked 3 times the voltage of an electrical outlet. And you really think these agents are going to follow that manual? Do not use on vulnerable people. I bet they're standing there before they grab them with the gloves thinking, this might be a vulnerable person. No, they're not. This is torture. This is psychotic. This is un-American. This is unbelievable.
Well, it's a good thing we cut their training. Good thing we cut their training in half before we sent them out into the field. These new recruits that are so well qualified for this type of power. Something about less than lethals. Sometimes firearm deaths do go down very modestly, but what skyrockets usually is use of force incidents, because they are too willing. And this is much better trained police officers than the folks we're talking about. They're too willing to use these interventions instead of talking things through when they have something they believe won't kill them. One of the things I'm most worried about in that manual, Miles, is the no more than 2 gloves on individuals. As we have seen over and over again, as you mentioned, those tapes, these guys like to dogpile on people that aren't much of a threat at all, but they love to dogpile. They tackle before they talk. They are not de-escalators in any sense of the word. And so you could see a world where there's 4, 6, 8 gloves on an individual. They activate in less than a second, these gloves. And so, how many people are going to be seriously injured or even killed through this? I mean, you think about the protesters. I go speak at local indivisible chapters in Portland all the time. Average age of those chapters is 60, 65, 70 that get out and bravely protest and stand up to ICE, at least in my hometown. That is not an okay person to tase with the type of voltage we're talking about. And it's going to happen. If you give these guys have been waiting to use stuff like this. They've been dying to use stuff like this. That's why they signed up. This is the challenging place we're in, Miles, in so many ways. Like when I go look back at times where authoritarianism has been thwarted, oftentimes those asked to be repressive units signed up for a kind of broader vision for themselves and their role. They were soldiers that wanted to protect the country. They were police that were just signing up to protect their city, and then kind of were coerced and asked to these types of tasks. Trump, I think, is like one of his smartest moves. Kind of got in front of that, knew that was going to be a challenge, and instead recruited a force specifically for the task of repressing Americans. And it's really challenging to figure out how to get in there in a way that like other societies have been successful at in previous, successful attempts to overthrow authoritarians.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, one of the first things that happens is you've got to shock the conscience of the American public. I mean, no pun intended here. I say that because, you mentioned a term, Xander, de-escalation. When you use less than lethals, the purpose is to de-escalate. So a situation doesn't get into a use of lethal force situation. When I talk to frontline defenders, and there's a lot of technologies that get hawked to them. Hey, buy this tool, use this. A lot of these vendors. The reason these types of ideas get shut down by most police departments is because they are inherently escalatory. You just saw those videos. Mm-hmm. You saw videos of at least 2 people that looked like they were current or former military who were prepared to be shocked, standing there, knowing that they were going to be shocked, who reacted in a way that was very surprising to me. They reacted like they were in total agony. Now take a crowd of protesters who are already agitated, frustrated about something, and instead of de-escalating, you take people expressing their First Amendment rights and you torture them in front of everyone. You think that crowd is going to de-escalate?
Yeah.
You have created a public safety crisis. Let me say this again. These stupid gloves, this asinine idea, is a handheld public safety crisis. This does not do the job of law enforcement. This does not do the job they're supposed to. It has the opposite effect. This will result in more escalation. This will shock the conscience of the country. And perhaps, Xander, that is the thinnest silver lining here. Something like this happens, and I think the people who have sat their asses on the sideline amidst all of this, they cannot watch Americans being touched with these torture gloves and say, well, this is okay. This is okay, right? And if you think for a second this is an anomaly, if you're that rare soul right now that's listening to me and saying, well, I want to give ICE the benefit of the doubt. Well, let me tell you, because I've sat in those damn rooms. 2018, 2019, I sat in conversations with our immigration agencies when I was chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security. And guess what was pitched to me, Xander? What was pitched to me was the idea that perhaps the immigration agencies should buy these standoff heat ray gun devices. These are basically devices that when you point them at someone, it makes them feel like their skin is burning. It makes them feel like they've been lit on fire. And the idea that I was told some people were pressuring them from the White House to go investigate was whether we could deploy these at the border. So whether we could point these heat ray guns at women and children walking towards the United States to make their bodies feel like they'd been lit on fire.
To legally claim asylum, by the way. It's been protected since World War II.
It's a great point. These are people fleeing violence and persecution. Welcome to the United States. We're going to trick your mind into thinking your body's on fire. Psychological and physical torture. I remember specifically one of those days we were in the Ronald Reagan building in Washington, D.C. Reagan would be so proud. Shining city on a hill is how he portrayed America. Yet we had meetings about how to turn the United States into a fortified bunker in a mountain. We walked out of one of those meetings and I turned to the Secretary of Homeland Security and I said, this is some of the sickest shit I've ever heard. We cannot let anyone mention one of these devices in a meeting again. This needs to be shut down immediately. Zero conversations. Dead. Done. No one will ever talk about buying a fucking heat ray device on my watch and pointing it at an innocent person. This is what happens, folks. When you bring a man like this back into office, you surround him with fifth raters who want to suck up to the president to show him they're ready to be crueler than he is. That's what he's done. That's what's happening in your country. And by the way, Todd Blanche says the other day, I don't know what's so wrong about sending ICE agents to the polls. What's so wrong about sending ICE agents to the polls with electric shock gloves while we're exercising our democratic rights? These guys don't even understand the caricature of dystopia that they are. If you weren't pissed off yet at the Trump administration, I hope this does it for you.
The electric ants to go along with their masks, their no IDs, all the other absurd shit going on right now. Well, look, Miles, you were addressing that to anyone who may be supporting ICE. Good news, that number of people is dropping tremendously. 8 in 10 independent voters feel ICE used too much force going into the midterms, according to a YouGov poll, and that jumped from 6 out of 10 after the most recent killing. So I think everyone's waking up to this. The only thing that runs through my mind, Miles, is
everyone's not. I want to speak to the 2 in 10.
Yeah,
what the hell are you thinking right now? What the hell are you thinking?
What's going on with you guys?
What the hell are you thinking?
Actually, 2 in 10.
10 out of 10.
Miles and I are going to have tea with you. We're going to sit down. We're going to fucking talk because it's so absurd to like what you see at this point. Miles, I think you nailed something, though, that every once in a while, like when I shake out of the fog of the stories we're covering, I remember. You talked about being escalatory. And I've said a few times, Trump is trying to get ICE agents killed. Like he's trying to create emergencies left, right, and center. One of the things he wants to have happen is when they use force, a lot of people, and it makes sense, react to that use of force by trying to fight back and free themselves. And so to your point about them being escalated, one of the outcomes I think Trump is hoping for is some of these ICE agents use this force inappropriately, get hurt or killed as people try to defend themselves, and then Trump has the emergency he wants. We should keep that in mind. He is trying to invoke emergency powers always, and it makes a lot of these stories make sense.
I could see in your eyes here on the live stream, Xander, you were like, we're going to bring Miles back down. We're going to de-escalate this conversation because I can see he's getting worked up. This is it, folks. This is the real stuff. I mean, if you think for a second these are just people parading around in Halloween costumes, you are missing the point. These are people cosplaying as the Gestapo, wearing the long jackets, putting on the leather gloves, but this time their leather gloves will shock you into submission. We're not going to stand for it. We are not going to stand for it. That's why we are fighting this in many ways. That's why Defiance.org has been out there backing the protesters, has been out there backing the groups holding the administration accountable, has been backing the organizations willing to sue these ICE agents for breaking the law. And here's my message, ICE agents. Your asses are going to get sued if you're using these things to torture people. And guess what? I think if you lay a hand on someone at all with one of these, you are already torturing them. Watch out. The lawsuits are going to come flying, Xander. And I don't predict that these things are going to stay on their hands for very long. And look, if Mark Wayne Mullen can't stand up to his boss and pull him back, well, we're going to put the pressure on them to make sure that they do. Congress, we're looking at you.
It's also the reason, Miles, that we work in the ways we do, where we have a weekly mission. And gang, we don't plan very far in advance because of this. We want to be able to react to the moments and fight Trump fire with fire as soon as they launch plans like this. So there'd be an easier way they would go about running this work, Miles. We could have planned as big philanthropy does, plan our grantees a year in advance and just dole out the money. Gang, the reason we start new things and the reason we work on a week by week basis is to make sure we can step up in the ways that are needed to step up to fight this cruelty.
Yeah. I mean, real talk, if you can afford it, like this is why to become a member of Defiance.org, right? We don't, look, we have friends across independent media. I am so grateful for what they do. Most of them are for-profit entities, as they should be. They got to be able to be incentivized to hire teams, to grow, to do all that. I get it, right? They build out their reporting apparatus. We spend the majority of our effort and funds on highlighting those abuses of power and doing things about them. We are a lean nonprofit that works our butts off to make sure we're out there every week, activating real elements to combat these abuses. If you want to do something about it, become part of the club for the courageous. And I got to say one last thing on this, Xander, before we move on, is I see our producers making some notes here in our chat about how, history has shown ways people can respond to this. In Hong Kong, protesters used helmets to protect themselves and buckets to extinguish pepper balls, et cetera, et cetera. That's horse shit. And I'll tell you why. To exercise your First Amendment rights, you shouldn't have to have a flak jacket on. To engage in free speech, you shouldn't have to wear a fucking helmet. To be an American, you shouldn't have to protect yourself head to toe from federal authorities. It should be on them to let us exercise our rights. It should be on them to de-escalate. The onus should be on them if a situation spirals out of control. The presumption should be that our First Amendment rights come first. Unfortunately, I think we are going to see people, as Mercedes notes, having to gear up and protect themselves for fear of being tortured by their own government. That's insane. That is insane. If there's any single story this month that has kept me motivated to stay in this fight against these sick psychopaths, it's this one. I hope you share it out with other people. And by the way, please do, right? If you don't know folks who've heard about this story, share it with them, because I think this crystallizes the type of people we are up against in the United States. Final story tonight, Xander.
Miles, real quick though, before you go on, because you should hear us. Britt J in our chat said, "We're in church right now." As you were going off, and she said, "Preach." The chat was really being supportive. It is great seeing you, Miles. You are such a not to send, to love bomb you on air, but you are such a great leader. We're so lucky you were in those positions in the first administration. It's great that you still get this fired up about it, man. I know you've been in this fight for a long time. It's important that we keep the energy we need to come at these guys.
Love bomb. Sorry, you had me at love bomb. Maybe that has to be the episode title. Xander love bombs Miles. We'll talk about it. Well, I'll tell you who's not getting love bombed, Xander. I'll tell you who's not getting love bombed, and that's Caroline Leavitt. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. She's leaving. Trump's a little bit more than upset, I'm sure, about this. Now, I will be the first to say there is obviously no love bombing from us to Caroline Leavitt leaving the White House. We're not love bombing
not a lot
her.
From Trump either.
Don't let the door hit you. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. She spent the last year and a half defending some of the ugliest parts of this administration. So this is not a sympathy segment.
Yeah.
But her departure, my friends, does tell us something bigger about what it's like to work for Donald Trump, something I also know a little bit about firsthand. But before we rehash all of that trauma, I want to do a quick recap of the events surrounding her exit, right? If you weren't following along with what happened here, Trump announced, yesterday that Leavitt will leave her role as White House press secretary at the end of the month to spend more time with family. And somewhat fittingly, Trump announced it before the press secretary herself did, as he always does. A little later, she posted her own goodbye on X. Here's that post that she put up on X. And for a while, that post came with a pretty incredible little label at the bottom, Xander. It looks like the AI service automatically stuck the label on there. Sorry, the social media service stuck a label on there that said, "Made with AI." Can't even write her own farewell message, which I just have to say, it's such a spectacular metaphor for a fake woman who works for a fake leader who spews fake news. She can't even write her own fucking authentic farewell letter. She posts a fake farewell letter. Look, you are a loser, Caroline Leavitt. You are a loser. You work for a loser. You will be regarded for the rest of your sad life as a little Gestapo-enabling loser who can't even write her own farewell letter. So enjoy that.
You're so spicy today. You're so spicy.
These are bad people, Xander. These are bad people, and they are ruining the greatest country in the history of the world, and we're not going to let them. I mean, yeah, they're in power now, but We will restore the rule of law. We will restore this republic. And by God, we will restore accountability. If Caroline Leavitt thinks she's going to get to sail off and have a good, cushy PR career after this, stay tuned. I got a feeling you're going to see her in some depositions. But anyway, let's come back to the present moment, because the announcement was said to have caught the White House press pool by surprise that she was leaving. But others close to Caroline say they saw the signs earlier. She was getting burnt out. Again, cue the crocodile tears. According to CNN White House correspondent Elena Train, Trump was not respectful of Leavitt's maternity leave after she had her second child in May, calling her repeatedly and wondering when would Caroline come back to the office. Another source close to Caroline spoke with the Daily Mail, saying Caroline had been strongly considering stepping down from her position during maternity leave, which makes sense. Again, not a fan of her, but federal employees are entitled to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. Leavitt returned after just 9. I will say, Xander, I have seen this story many times. This man micromanages the country while he's eating fast food in his fucking bedroom at 2 a.m, calling people,
What a visual.
waking them up. Caroline Leavitt's burnout, I don't feel bad for her. But the way that Donald Trump mismanages the United States of America, keeps her up, keeps all the cabinet members up, who then keep all the senior officials up of every agency, who then keep the career civil servants up, and the entire fucking federal government gets repurposed almost every single day to satiate the stupid desires of a fat man sitting in the White House residence, eating fast food and watching TV. That can last maybe a week without catastrophic consequences. You put it into a second term, and guess what happens? He takes us into failed wars overseas. Guess what happens? People start buying electric shock gloves for ICE agents. That's what happens when you put someone like this into office. So while I don't feel bad for Caroline Leavitt, I want you to understand, folks, that the cruelty with how Donald he treats his staff, a woman who's just had a baby, who should be home with that baby, pressuring her to get back to the office, that cruelty has a cascade effect. That cruelty has a corrosive effect on our republic. That's what you need to remember. It matters. Character matters. And after this administration, if we learn one thing, it should be character matters in the life of an individual and in nations alike. Don't ever forget that.
That's to the next person that's thinking about taking this press secretary job. By the way, I profiled A.G. Richardson, who, if you remember, Miles, stood up to Richard Nixon. I profiled him this morning on a Substack note, and his deputy AG Ruckelshaus, I think is how you say it. Both of them refused to fire the special investigator that was hired to take on the Watergate scandal, even though Nixon was asking him to. The next man up after Nixon fired both of them, or they stepped down because they refused to, Bork did do it. He fired the special prosecutor or special investigator. Richardson and Ruckelshaus, the men who declined to follow Nixon's bullshit orders, went on to lead very successful careers. I think Richardson was the Secretary of Commerce. Ruckelshaus led the EPA in different administrations. You know what happened to Bork? He was nominated for the Supreme Court, and the Senate shut him down. And they brought up relentlessly the fact that he was a sycophant and supported Nixon's efforts to fire, I think the guy's name was Jaworski, the special investigator. So guys, it's not a good career move. We keep receipts. This is the end of your career when you're a sycophant. And by the way, you only keep the job, it looks like 6 months. So unless you're just in the business of trying to get the title of AG or press secretary on your tombstone, and that's all you care about, then I guess take the job. But if you're hoping to lead a career where you're an impactful person in the world, this isn't the job for you. This isn't the job for you. Do the right thing. Stand up to the man. The country will forgive you for trying to get in there and do the right thing. And you know, I just hope you know where the story ends for everyone that thinks this is a path.
It's a very salient point, Xander. When you talk about people who sell their souls to get a better accolade on their tombstone, they need to be reminded the trade-off is you get the tombstone sooner, right? Because you burn yourself out, right? You're borrowing time from the back end to get a better accolade on that piece of stone. I
And
don't
by
know.
the way,
Take your own-
no one's fucking celebrating Hitler's number twos. Like, even though I'm sure that title was great when they had it, that tombstone is spit on, beat on, and disrespected in all ways
If they
possible.
have
Or,
one.
you know, if they have one. So, gang, like that is even short-sighted. This idea that somehow there's legacy associated with being attorney general or press secretary, and people won't know you were connected to that guy when you served that role is absurd. Is absurd. Some of the most hated names in history are the number twos and threes of Stalin and Hitler and leaders like Trump.
It was like our friend, former Congressman Denver Riggleman had said to me a long time ago, and I wrote about this in my book Blowback, is Denver had this quote where he said, it wasn't just the, cruelty of Stalin. It was all the little Stalins running around. The little Stalins were even crueler because they had to be, because in an autocratic system, in order to advance, you have to show that you are willing to do anything for the ruler. And if you are willing to do anything, that means you have to abrogate all values and morality. That's why the little Stalins are often worse than the Stalins themselves. The Stalins themselves may have some semblance of a fraction of a piece of a conscience or an ideology that maybe is buried under layers of cynicism. But the little Stalins, to rise, have to have none of that. Have to only have unflinching loyalty and a willingness to do anything. I talk about this a lot. I wrote about this week in the UK's iPaper. I wrote about how there was a lot of analysis after Nazi Germany into this phenomenon of the worst rising to the top. And that's ultimately the conclusion of a lot of those psychological studies and analyses, is in a regime where there is a single ruler, eventually, over time, the most unsavory, amoral people end up at the very top, because that is the condition for advancement. But on a lighter note, Xander,
lighter than Stalinist Russia. It'd be hard to be. We're going darker than KBG and Gulag Stalinist Russia. All right, go ahead. Pivot us in. I'm ready for a good joke. Go ahead.
I can't say this is a totally light segment, but it's a good one, which is we end our show today, as we do every day, with a segment called Who is Joining the Defiance? And today, our newest member of the Defiance is coming to us straight from the state of Texas. You probably have seen that tensions have been pretty high in Texas, particularly in this one county where a recent court proposal pushed to cut the number of county polling locations in half. So people are already freaked out about their voting rights. Now you got counties saying, why don't we just make it harder for people to vote? By the way, Texas County is like a small European country, right? So these counties are gigantic. But the backlash was most severe when Texas citizen Efren E.J. Carrion delivered a takedown during a Tarrant County Commissioner's Court meeting last week. I want you to take a look.
Are so desperate that Matt Krause is picking in his bucket down to Truth Social, Rumble, and just saying, socialism, authoritarianism, y'all come and help us, please. And Manny, you said you're all about cooling the temperature, and yet you vote for this extremist bullshit. All of you are bullshit.
Remove him immediately from the room.
I'm walking out this morning.
You have disrupted this meeting. We are now in. You are disrupting the meeting.
I like that guy. I think this would have been the episode to invite him on to the show as a guest. Now, here's the thing. This is why this is not just a story of someone standing up and being defiant and making some good points. It's important to point out he was thrown in jail for this. Efren was actually put in jail yesterday for telling them that it was bullshit. They arrested him because of this. And free speech groups have rightfully rushed to his defense. It was all over the media today, is folks defending him because they jailed a guy for engaging in something that we call free speech. If that doesn't show you the state of free speech in this country, I do not know what will, Xander. But I have to say, I admire this guy for going to a public meeting. I admire him for standing up in a place where he knows there's probably the likelihood that they're going to abuse their powers, try to throw him in jail for speaking out. He does it anyway. He's on the right side of history. And by the way, he's on the right side of the law.
What was the crime? Hurting their feelings? What was the fucking crime in there?
Melting snowflakes. Melting snowflakes.
Crazy,
in Texas, it's now illegal to melt MAGA snowflakes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're delicate. They're sensitive guys.
Unbelievable.
Our producer said it was something around disrupting the session and profanity. Yeah, I mean, that's what I had seen today. Is they said he was disrupting the proceedings, but I'm pretty sure he'd gone to the microphone for a public comment period. So good fucking luck with that one in court.
He had the mic. It's not like he was screaming out from the audience. Someone gave him the mic at some point. Max Flugrath was on our show, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I asked him, what he would do to make sure that we had a more true democracy. And he said, more polling locations. He's like, you don't need to get into even future technology and ways we can use tech to make sure people have access. You don't need to do anything tricky. We can just quintuple the polling locations in this country, make sure everyone can get to them easier. We're seeing the opposite take place. We talked about this a little bit when Dr. Anita was on too. One thing I want us to not lose sight of is not only are we dealing with all these attacks on all of our institutions, frankly, like democracy, yes, but also our health and every other industry is up for grabs and up for bribery at this point.
Yeah,
for sale. Thank you. But also, we could be living in a golden age. Like we are not lacking from a lack of technology or interventions or new ideas. We could be living in a golden age of health and wellness. We could be living in a golden age of democracy. Miles and I have a buddy that worked on digital IDs where you could vote from them. Everyone would have them all the time. You don't have to go anywhere. It knew who you are and used cutting edge technology to confirm who you are. It was unhackable and you could vote from your phone. There's so many ways we could be living in this beautiful future. And I don't want to lose track of that because I think sometimes the resistance against Trump gets stuck without painting a beautiful picture of what can be. And I just want everyone to remember that we are not only being robbed of the things that we have had in the past, we are being robbed of a future that could be so much better and more beautiful than the one we've known thus far.
All right, now I think we're in church. Take us to church, Xander. Take us to church.
Take us to church. I want to play that song. Good song. All right, how are we doing? We 2 minutes early. What's going on, Miles Taylor? You came back.
Yeah,
we're like nailing.
Teacher, is the bell about to ring? Is the bell?
Can we do a question? Can we do a question?
Yeah, but before we take questions, please drop questions into the chat. We'll take a few of them. We know we have not taken nearly enough questions this past week or two. There's been so much that we've been cramming in. So feel free to drop some questions into the chat. But very quickly, Xander, we've got some updates on the Anthill. That's what we call our Defiance.org members, Defiance. And what updates do we have there on the Anthill?
Let's see our
got some promotions.
A lot of promotions. You guys are doing work. Let's go. All right, we got Risa J, Kenya, David, Lane, and DA Design Inc. all getting promoted to the rank of Scout. I salute you. Scout means you got one friend to join the Defiance. If you want to achieve a new promotion, go to defiance.news/leaderboard and get your referral code. Send it out to some friends. I'm going to do it right now, right after I get off this show, because I'm trying to get promoted. I don't know where I've been, where I rank. I got to get up there. So I'm going to send it out to some friends I've been texting today. I'm going to meet with some friends later today and try to get them to join Defiance and keep doing it, gang. This is to the point Miles was making earlier. This is a movement we're building together to make sure not only we turn back Trump, not only we turn back his sycophants, not only we turn back his successors, but we build the country, an anti-corrupt country that we deserve. And so we're going to keep this train rolling, help us build it out, and let's go win the future together.
Yeah, what we just announced yesterday, if you weren't tuned into the program, is we announced that Defiance seeded and funded a anti-weaponization fund. You've heard that term before? Well, this is the real anti-weaponization fund. If If you want to see what I'm talking about, you can see it at awfund.org, awfund.org. We did this because we firmly believe that we should be engaged in rapid response to help people who have been targets of Donald Trump's revenge campaign. I had firsthand experience with this. It changed my life that so many people across the country, many of you listening right now, came out of the woodwork, people I've never met, many of whom I'll never meet in my life, but to say you stood with us, that had an extraordinary impact. And when Xander and I first started talking about creating defiance.org, one of the first things we talked about is, should we create an organization just to do exactly that, to crowdsource support for the people who are being pursued by the federal government? You have no idea. This is a David and Goliath story every single day because of these people. And we felt like there needed to be an organization to get to them before the intimidation got to their consciences and say, don't give in. Don't give in. Don't do what the law firms did. Stand up. We know it's going to be hard. We know it's scary. We know it could be expensive, but we've got your backs. We're going to help you answer those questions. You've got a big community to join, even if you're losing friends and family who don't want you to poke the bear. We have got you. That makes a difference to do that. Now, we decided to do something even bigger than that, to allow just any American, not just the people who were targets of Trump's revenge, to fight back against his corruption. But we announced yesterday that we wanted to make sure that we have a dedicated fund just to do that and to do it with regularity. So you're going to hear us talking about this because we want to make sure that we have resources in that fund so that we can go tell those people who are in the crosshairs, the next indictment, the next person Trump says, I'm going to go investigate them, the next person who has to sit on their couch with their wife, like I did, and say, do we have to sell the house? Is that the position that we're in now? And get to them and say, hey, there are resources. There are ways to get help. We're going to tell you about that. We're going to connect you to the right groups. We're going to connect you to legal counsel. We're going to connect you to cybersecurity support. We're going to connect you to a lawyer who will help you with the MAGA stalkers who've come out of the woodwork when they heard Donald Trump's dog whistle. We're going to do that. It's the right thing to do. We're going to do it, and we are doing it. So go check out awfund.org. Those are the types of things that we do at Defiance. So kudos to all those people on the anthill who are helping to spread the Defiance, because the more you do, the more of that we are able to do to help people. There's a one-to-one impact here of the more people we have in, the more folks we can help out there to stand up for their rights. Lori, great to see you in the chat. Lori, love seeing your name. You asked a question today and said, Miles, what about Trump putting his name back in the Kennedy Center? So if folks didn't see, the board of sycophants at the Kennedy Center voted today that they are putting the words, and I called this, by the way. I'll tell you in a second. They're putting the words restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump on the Kennedy Center. That's what they're putting on there. Now, Xander, when this happened, and by the way, we, Defiance.org members, you should be very proud. You supported the organization that brought that lawsuit to take Trump's name off the Kennedy Center. That's the Democracy Defenders Fund, led by my friend and former ambassador, Norm Eisen. So pat yourself on the back for that. That was a righteous fight. That is a fight that clearly will continue. But as soon as we got the verdict that his name needed to come down.
I was going to say, they also funded the awareness campaign led by the Committee for the First Amendment that did a big public awareness campaign around what was going on in front of the Kennedy Center.
Defiance members, you know, you funded a protest that we did in front of the Kennedy Center with celebrities and national leaders to take it down. You helped fund the organization that brought the lawsuit. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to keep fighting that fight, because as I predicted right after that judgment came down, Trump would find some stupid way to have his name on there by saying something like the Donald J. Trump funded Kennedy Center or whatnot. So this is apparently what they're going with. The restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump Kennedy Center. I got a sneaking suspicion, Xander, that the judge is going to be a little bit more than pissed off about this. The judge is going to be a little bit more than pissed off about this. So we'll see. Xander, I'm
We
gonna throw
still
this
need
one
to
to you.
consolidate all those spicy judge quotes. Like we haven't done that yet. Like all of the, what do they call the comments that they make when they make a decision? What is that called? You know,
Wait, what do
the
you mean?
comments that judges
when they
make
issue
when
an
they make a
opinion?
decision. Yeah, it's
They
not
issue
an
an
opinion
opinion?
though. It's like after they rule, they've had these
Well,
statements.
I
that they
think we
make.
should just call it the Caliente Court. We'll call it the Caliente Court, and we'll get all the spicy quotes, put it on a website. That would be a fun weekend vibe coding exercise.
For sure.
Xander, I'm going to throw this one to you. Agent 99 asked the question, where is the Trump Epstein bookmobile right now? Is there a schedule or a map? Xander, what's the latest? What can we tell the good people out there who want to go meet the Trump Epstein bookmobile?
It's in New York City. It's in New York City. It's getting its final kind of pieces in place over there. Its final retrofit. It was a taco truck, remember, gang. So it's transforming from taco truck to like patriotic bookmobile.
Just so you know,
America.
when we did the reveal in Washington D.C., we brought it down sooner than the interior had been renovated because we wanted to do the unveiling the week of Todd Blanche's nomination. It then had to go back up to New York City so they could finish retrofitting the interior so people can go tour the bookmobile. But that thing hits the first major city, I think, in 2 weeks. I think
exactly.
It's our understanding that next week we get to announce the cities.
Yes.
Folks can still vote. I think the first couple of cities have already been locked, and that'll get announced next week. But folks can go vote at TrumpEpsteinBookmobile.com, and you can put your city in. There's a pretty frenzied competition, I think, between cities right now, but I think a lot of them are already checked off. But we should talk, Xander, about having our friend David Garrett from Institute for the Primary Facts to come on next week to roll out the city list. And Agent 99, we're looking forward to seeing you out there because Xander and I are talking about, we don't want to reveal this before they're ready, but we know the first couple of cities. And so he and I are trying to coordinate schedules to get to one or all of those if we can. I say that and my voice is traveling through the wall, and my wife's like, you're planning what? What I really should have said, Xander, Xander and I are planning to be on the road through Christmas in the Trump Epstein bookmobile, and then you'd hear the door open over here and Hannah would walk in and she'd be like, what are you talking about? But we're going to try to be out there with you guys.
Miles and I were talking offline earlier this week about, we plan to hang out. Guys, we've seen each other physically once since this whole thing started. We've wanted to hang out many times, but we often are tag teaming on missions like that while we make sure our families still love us and stay intact. And so we haven't been able to tag team on much, but we're hoping to tag team at least a week on the bookmobile and driving around somewhere fun.
And yeah, and I gotta say, it just that's one of those things. I just feel like incredibly proud that we did because of the reaction we got at the unveiling in Washington D.C. from the survivors. This is for them, you guys. This is a traveling platform that you have made for them to be out there, to raise awareness, to keep this in the public conversation, and ultimately to get justice. Like, the point here is not just to keep talking about Epstein and Donald Trump.
Right.
That's not the point. It's important that we highlight how corrupt this all was, but in the end, it's to get justice. And think a couple steps ahead, because right now it's like, well, why don't we just talk about the files and the files? What's going to happen? Well, there's got to be developments this week, if there haven't been while we're on the air, in the case that our friend Katie Fang brought against the Justice Department and Todd Blanche. But also, when this administration is gone, statute of limitations on some of these crimes will not have expired.
Right.
There will ultimately be justice for the victims. This is one way we can make sure that the accountability ends up happening. So thank you for everyone who has chipped in on this. I think between the direct support from defiance.org and the support from our members and Extended Universe, we are deep into six figures in terms of community support for this effort. By the way, I've got an update that I've just been handed a note digitally by our team member 15 minutes ago on this case. Epstein judge, quote, "The public has a right to know what the hell is going on." I'm going to tell you right now, it sounds like the judge in the Katie Fang case against the Justice Department is quite pissed off. On Thursday, the judge warned the department that the answers it has given so far, including in the courtroom today, were not enough and invoked an infamous botched criminal trial of a sitting U.S. senator as an example. More on that. That's breaking news there that you're hearing on Defiance Daily. But it sounds like that story is continuing. You all are a part of that story. You all have bravely stood up and said, you know what? We're going to help those people get the justice that they deserve. So thank you for that. Thank you for those of you who are subscribed to the free updates from defiance.org about tracking the administration's corruption and what you can do about it. Thank you to the Defiance who have thrown down with us and are in the fight. Xander and I have also put a hell of a lot of time, money, and personal effort into the cause, and we are going to keep going. We're going to keep going, you guys. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Sure feels like a marathon at sprinter's pace, but we can do it. We've got the endurance. And by the way, I'm also seeing, Xander, that the judge is threatening to disbar the DOJ lawyers in this case. You're going to hear about this tomorrow, folks. If that is what the judge said in this case, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as you were saying, personal resources, I just bought calientecourt.org because that last quote was so good. I was like, all right, we're doing it. This is going from my idea to like, we have to put this in action. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Caliente
the quotes
court.
Coming out of the judicial.
You just got a fresh one, Xander. The public has a right to know what the hell is going on, says this judge. This is what you will hear about tomorrow, folks, is this threat from the judge in this case. This is breaking news here that the judge in this Epstein case, to backtrack, journalist Katie Fang brought a lawsuit against Todd Blanche and the Justice Department for their redactions around the Epstein files and for their failure to release the rest of the files. That case has been heard. That case has been escalated with the judge 2 weeks ago demanding that Todd Blanche, by the end of July, personally deliver the files that he had been withholding and reveal the redactions and explain the reason behind those redactions that included documents about co-conspirators in the Epstein conspiracy, that included documents with allegations about the president of the United States allegedly raping a 13-year-old child. And Todd Blanche was supposed to personally provide explanations for what's in there and those redactions. It doesn't sound like that's going well. It doesn't sound like the Justice Department is being cooperative. And now the judge is threatening to disbar Justice Department lawyers for their failure to comply. Tomorrow, you will hear in the news that this is a major escalation of the judiciary. The judiciary, the courts in this country, are sick of this shit. They are sick of the U.S. Department of Justice flagrantly disobeying the law, flagrantly defying judges, flagrantly serving a man instead of serving the Constitution. It's going to take away their law licenses if they don't fix it. That is a step up. We have seen, Xander, judges in recent months levy fines against DOJ lawyers, personal fines for non-compliance. That is now, as of tonight, apparently escalating to threats to revoke their law licenses altogether, to take their careers basically away from them and put a stain on them forever for failing to obey. This is big news, folks. This is big news. You're going to want to track this. And I do have to say, this is why you support folks in independent media. This is why you do it. I was just talking with our friend, who was I on with yesterday? We were talking with our friend Don Lemon about how when Katie Fang was at MSNBC, she didn't have the ability to go bring lawsuits against the Justice Department.
Right.
She does now. Continues to be an outstanding reporter and can bring lawsuits against the administration. Good on her for doing that. Make sure you go support and follow Katie Fang, and it will be interesting to see this one and where it goes next. We just had Katie on the other week. Sounds like we're going to need to have her back into the conversation here in the next few days, Xander. I know we're in overtime, folks. Let me just say, on behalf of me and Xander and our whole team here at defiance.org. Thank you for everything you do. I think you can tell from today's episode, we are passionate about what we do. You enable us to do it by supporting our work at defiance.org, by standing with people who are targets of revenge, by leaning forward in the fight against corruption. We're going to keep going. And we're back on the air tomorrow. Because what's tomorrow, Xander? What do we do on Fridays?
Friday, we give out a fun bootlicker award we call the Soulmate Award. So you can go to soulmate.vote tomorrow and you'll see the candidates and can even place your vote because it is by and for the people, that award.
And we'll be talking about the MAGA losses of the week. And we will be joined by a special guest. You won't want to miss it. This is one of our more entertaining guests in the entire Defiance ecosystem. You're going to love to spend Friday with us. We will also be bidding farewell to our summer associate, summer fellow, summer intern, Megan Eslick. Make sure to tune in tomorrow to send Megan off in style with us. Join that program between now and tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern live. As always, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. Thanks for your support.